In this video, we address the question, how does Berard AIT affect auditory processing? Auditory processing simply means how we treat the auditory information that reaches our brains. We hear sounds and words through our ears, but we need to make sense of this information, and so we sort it, categorize it, and interpret it so that we can understand the meaning of these sounds. We process it with our brains. If the auditory information, the sounds and the words that enters our ears, is distorted, then it becomes difficult to make sense of the information, meaning we have difficulty processing the information. These distortions can take many forms: hypersensitivity, delays, and imbalances in the auditory signal, for example. Any of these can interfere with an individual's ability to process auditory information. These inconsistencies and distortions in perception often affect the signal-to-noise ratio. An easy way to understand the signal-to-noise ratio is to think of the signal as the important information you want to focus on as you try not to listen to the noise. The signal-to-noise ratio is a measure of how strong that signal is compared to the background noise around it. Hypersensitivity, distortions, delays, and imbalances can weaken the auditory signal, making it more difficult to distinguish from background noise. This makes it harder to understand speech in noisy environments like classrooms, meetings, restaurants, or any situation where there are many people speaking at once, or where there is any type of competing environmental noise. Berard AIT works directly to strengthen and reinforce our natural ability to filter out background noise, making the speech signal or other target signals easier to distinguish. Sometimes hypersensitivity, distortions, delays, and imbalances are created by what we call peaks in the listening profile. A peak is a certain frequency that is heard more easily than other frequencies. Hypersensitivity can be identified through a listening test, or by self-identification, or by simple observation. Very high peaks can create hypersensitivity, meaning that someone can be oversensitive to certain sounds and can hear them even at very low decibels. Everyday sounds, including voices, which contain these frequencies, can then become uncomfortable and in some cases can cause real discomfort. The soothing sound of soft rain, for example, can sound loud and aggressive. When there are several peaks in a listening profile, it creates what we call a valley or a low point between the two peaks. The two peak frequencies can cause a mask effect because the frequency of the valley is masked or drowned out by the peaks. When this occurs, it becomes difficult to distinguish one speech sound from another, and we often misunderstand the message. The goal of Berard is to eliminate the peaks and valleys, which reduces or resolves both hypersensitivity and the mask effect, making listening more comfortable and auditory signals, whether it is speech or other sounds, easier to understand. Another cause for auditory interference is poor auditory dominance. Just like we are right-handed or left-handed, we can be right-eared or left-eared, meaning we process auditory signals with the dominant ear, either the right or the left. Processing auditory information that comes through the right ear is faster and more effective because the auditory signals are sent directly to the left brain, which is where the primary language center is located. When auditory signals are received through the left ear, they go to the right brain and then have to be sent over to the language center in the left brain, which causes a delay in processing. Sometimes the auditory signals are mixed, meaning we can be right-eared dominant for some frequencies and left-eared dominant for other frequencies. As a result, some sounds enter the right ear and are processed immediately in the language center in the left brain. Other sounds enter the left ear, travel first to the right brain, and then must travel over to the left brain to be processed. The delay can cause words to sound backwards. Or, depending on which sounds are processed first, the word can sound mixed up. In either case, the message is unclear. According to Dr. Berard, for optimal auditory processing, the ears must work together in a coordinated manner. This means we need to hear in the same way with both ears. When the auditory intake is imbalanced, it affects our ability to both localize sounds and process auditory signals. It may be difficult to know exactly where a sound is coming from, and certain sounds may be distorted. This is what lack of coordination between the ears looks like on a listening test. We can clearly see that the listening profiles are different from right ear to left. This is the same listening profile after 10 hours of Berard AIT, where we can see that the pattern in both ears is now similar, which improves both the localization of sound as well as the perception of sound. We've seen how distortions, such as hypersensitivity, delays, and imbalances, can adversely affect our ability to process auditory information. Berard AIT addresses each of these factors, improving the way we process auditory information, which helps us think, speak, and understand in real time.